Thanks for attending. Super excited for this panel today. My name is Alex Meredith. I'm the co-founder of a company called Honest. We're a product growth studio that helps early stage startups develop product growth strategies. So if any of the stuff we talk about today is of any interest, then you can find me right after this. We've got an awesome panel to talk about this. Product growth is something I think a lot of people, you hear the term pretty frequently in the industry. And we've got a really good group of experts here to really talk through some of the fun stuff about it. So we'll kick things off. I'll let everybody introduce themselves. Andrew, start with you.
Sure. Thanks, Alex. Hi, everyone. My name's Andrew Tsui. Some of you may remember me from last year. I was speaking about web-to-app user acquisition for K-Health. I have had a bit of a career. Really happy to be in front of you all today. Yves?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Yves Benchimol. I'm the founder and CEO of WeWard. So WeWard is a French mobile app that tries to incentivize people to be more active and to increase the number of steps. So the app was launched like 4 years ago, approximately. We have like 20 million downloads and like 3 million daily active users, mostly in Europe. And I'm currently working from the US to the expansion of the app all around the world. So we have an office in Paris and one in New York now.
Hey everyone, I'm Sukriti. I'm currently working at DoorDash as a product manager on the consumer side. I started my career as an Android developer and moved to a growth PM role at Yahoo Finance, followed by Spotify, where I worked on the platform side, followed by launching a 0-to-1 marketplace for artists to sell merch.
So like I said, we've got some experts up here. Guys, I'm going to kick this off with a very easy one to start, a little icebreaker. Tell me the first app that you guys opened up when you woke up this morning. And if we can tie it to PLG somehow, by all means.
I think for me, my alarm clock app, followed by Spotify. I like to listen to music for the first half an hour or so of the day. So no PLG, sadly.
For me, it was X, I think. Mostly in France, currently there is election, so we are like always on news because like two extreme are currently in front of the power. But yeah, that's why I'm on X.
Well, so for me, Alex, it was the Aura app. So the ring tracker, in case folks don't know about it. I actually have to thank my wife. So a little bit of PLG there from a referral point of view, but also from a data nerding perspective. I mean, that app really knows how to tell you, oh, did you sleep well? Did you rest well? Are you kind of being in a lazy mode? Or do you actually need to take a break because you were really stressed out? And for someone like me, it's incredibly useful to see on that home screen, oh, okay, this is how it tracked my sleep last night. I'm feeling good about what's going to come next. And for what it's worth, I'm feeling good for today's panel.
Okay, so I know I just asked this question, and I obviously knew I was going to ask this question going into the day, and I thought I was going to have a really cool answer, but I still woke up this morning and opened up Instagram. So I was like ready to be like, oh, it's going to be Claude or Perplexity or something cool. No, Instagram. All right, so kind of like I said at the beginning, a lot of people in this room have probably heard the term product-led growth. It's become really popular over the last couple of years as a term, as a practice. It's been around for quite a while. We might not have called it the same thing, but it's been around in different shapes and forms. Guys, I want to kind of start this off by initially just asking, what is product-led growth? I think even though a lot of people have heard the term, let's try to define it a little bit and make it a little bit more clear, kind of normalize it in a sense so that everybody can understand what we're talking about here.
So I'm happy to take a crack at it. At least for me, PLG is all about getting the user to value. In the direct-to-consumer space, it's all about how you help them consume or feel something. In B2B situations where I've been spending a lot more of my career on, it's more about how you help them achieve a particular task in order to get them from point A to point B. And so if you're doing that well, in the very, very first few moments that the user is encountering your app or your platform, that's PLG right there, at least to me.
Yeah, I agree. For us, I think like PLG is like the definition can vary between companies. So for us as a mobile app developer and like a consumer app, what we call growth is mainly the number of daily active users. So product-led growth for us is like how we will, using product development, impact the number of daily active users, and what can we do internally without like doing external marketing. So mostly when we do product-led growth is like any action that will increase the virality of the app. So how our user can bring other user, and also increase the retention of the current user. So how we will be sure that the user will stick into the app. And so for us, the product-led growth is like, what can we do inside our product that will increase the retention and the virality?
It's a really good definition. I think in my perspective, it's both a go-to-market term as well as a product strategy where the product speaks for itself. And that's what you use to get activation, retention from users. And growth can mean a bunch of different things based on the product that you're working on. I think traditionally, product-led growth is a term in contrast to sales-led or marketing-led growth. And now they're sort of working in tandem in most industries. I think consumer apps have almost always been product-led, and now B2B is sort of catching up.
I think it's you brought up a couple good points there. As people have heard the term PLG, I think it's usually associated with B2B SaaS. I see some heads nodding in the audience right now. That's how a lot of people think about it. But you can hear from all you guys, it's not just B2B SaaS. And like I just said a little bit ago, it's been this is an idea that's been around for a while. Now, we obviously have a lot of people here in the audience who are working on mobile apps, on mobile platforms. Let's try to tailor this a little bit more towards that, that idea. How do we think about PLG as it specifically applies to mobile? Is it any different? Do we think about it differently, or is this something that more generally? It's all right, but or is it more specifically like? I'll leave it there. I'm mumbling at this point. Somebody else take it.
I think mobile is just one channel for product-led growth. The strategies or the specific features might look different because you have so much more flexibility with location services or beacons now with mobile apps that you can utilize to build a better experience for the users. But I think just broad umbrella, PLG and mobile are sort of one is a subset of the other instead of like being two separate things.
Yeah, if I could jump in here for a moment, I think mobile allows us to leverage a lot of unique capabilities that might not be available on web, maybe not available on classic SaaS platforms for some number of reasons. I tend to think in terms of referrals, in terms of user interactions, in terms of feeds as potential sub-mediums to allow for creativity for how you might approach product-led growth.
Yeah, definitely. The main difference is like the capabilities that you have to bring growth with mobile. So you talk about some of them, but like push notification, in-app message can be like very powerful for growth. And it depends of what is like, what you're looking for growth. Some people can be revenue, the number of order, or like, I don't know, the number of articles. But for us, as daily active users is like how we will be sure that people are most active, so to increase this number of daily active users and like bring other people. And so, yeah, we use a lot of different type of technique, but at the end, like you can use another channel and try to find the specificity of this channel to lead to bring growth to your product.
So it really does come down to engagement a lot, right? I mean, it's not necessarily, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of people, when they think about product-led growth or just the term growth in general, they generally think about it's about acquisition. And I think that's one of the things that kind of differentiates, PLG from some other forms of growth. It's not just a focus on acquisition itself. There's a whole lot of other layers to include there. One of those other layers is certainly onboarding. it's certainly a huge part of it. You think about retention and engagement and what the place that onboarding plays into that. How do you guys think about that? How do you think about onboarding as it relates to maybe your current companies or others? But how do you think about onboarding as it relates to PLG as a whole?
So I'd say that onboarding is incredibly important. It's the first part of the typical marketing duality here between acquisition and retention. It's the first impression that the users have about your app, about your service, and it really leads them to understand what is it that you're going to do for that person. So if you have a thoughtfully constructed onboarding, it doesn't necessarily have to be incredibly short, then you're really helping them understand how does the app, how does the game fit into their lives. Are they going to be expecting to have quick 5-minute hits? Are they going to expect to see a doctor? Are they going to expect to learn something or connect with friends and family? It's really that moment where you can help them understand what's going to happen, as well as an opportunity for you to learn more about that user. Because as we all know, there's a huge drop-off from acquisition to retention. And so you really want to understand and develop more sophisticated methods for assessing what tactics are working and what doesn't for your onboarding.
Yeah, I think like onboarding it can be, of course, for paid advertising or like any marketing, you have to work on your onboarding. But also when we talk about virality and product-led growth that will like the referral and other stuff that will bring new users, you have to maximize the value of these new users and so to maximize the retention of new users. And for us, what we always say is like we need to create a wow effect in the first experience, and then the product will try to create a habit. So I will say, put you as a user and say, if I'm downloading the app, will I have this wow effect that someone didn't have in another product? And you can create this wow effect with animation, with like, even like Aura, I think it's a great example. You go on the app and you have so much data about you and say, wow, this is like incredible to have this kind of data, even if sometimes it can be fake or it can be like too much compared to what they really have about you. But they try to create with animation and analytics this kind of a wow effect. And if you have the wow effect, then the rest is just how we will create a habit to have a retention after a few days or few weeks. But for us, the wow effect is when you download the WeWard app, we managed to take your number of steps that you did since you have the same phone, and we just celebrate your number of steps. And we give to people the emotional effect of, wow, what you did this year was incredible, and together we will do better next year. It's very simple, but people feel good in this app and say, wow, this is like the first app that congratulates me for the number of steps I do. And so this is the type of wow effect we're trying to do. So the onboarding, we're thinking about like how we create this wow effect to increase the retention of the first day.
Yves, real quick, when you think about the wow effect, wow effect or that aha moment for a lot of your users, one of the terms that gets thrown around a lot is North Star metric. I certainly have applied that concept to a lot of businesses. Do you look at that the same? Is your North Star metric can you pinpoint it to that aha moment? Is that exactly what it is for you guys?
So I know that some people will, at the first experience, will try, maybe if the North Star metrics is the revenue, will try to put a paywall or something. For us, it's the number of daily active users. So the most important thing is like to be sure that this guy will come back the day after. And to do that, we are trying to have this wow effect by celebrating this moment and to prove to him the value that if he coming back tomorrow, he will have the same emotional effect. And I think like it's totally aligned with our North Star metrics. And of course, it's different from some people. I'm sure that for you, maybe it's like to make the first order or, I don't know, read an article. But for us, it's definitely be sure that we will give the same dopamine the day after.
Right.
Sukriti, I know you guys, I know DoorDash operates North Star metrics for sure, but yeah, open up for us. Tell us a little bit about it.
I think there's two ways to think about onboarding, especially for an established product. So the first is when you're introducing newer users to your product overall. So someone's download an app for the first time, how do you get them to the core value of the product as quickly as possible? So simplifying your sign-up flow, getting them to discover whatever content you're trying to get them to discover, and then take the core action that your app is built for. For Spotify, that is playing your first song. For Facebook, it was getting to your first 7 friends, and then you're in for life. For Uber, it was ride twice, and you're in for life. So that core action, or that magic number that you were speaking about, the product teams and the marketing team's goal is to identify highly qualified leads or people that are going to download this app with the intent to use it, or having enough of a use case to then use it. The second part, which is in more established apps, there's a sub-problem of how do you onboard users to newer features without disrupting the core experience as you're trying to expand into new use cases or newer features. And that becomes a whole other set of problems and creative solutions to get around. And I think the core of that is just knowing intent or making intelligent guesses about what the user's intent might be in that moment.
How do you best identify that intent?
That's why we have machine learning.
Pre-machine learning, how do we best identify that intent?
I think there's also like heuristics you can put in place. That was a glib answer. Like, if you're coming in through a referral or a link of, let's say, for Spotify, you're coming in through a podcast link. Obviously, you're interested in podcasts, and that's the content that the app will then try to serve to you more than the other side of the business. Similarly, for let's say you're coming in through an article recommendation or a friend recommendation, then your use case is going to look different. So the time of day is another heuristic you can use to intelligently identify what type of content to serve to what type of user.
Yeah, I think, Alex, it's funny that you pressed on that for a moment. I suppose I'm a little old school because I still rely on user research. I still rely on well-instrumented apps and platforms. I look at the data. I try and talk to users as much as possible so that we can get a sense of, well, not necessarily with machine learning, but getting a more intuitive understanding of where are we falling short or where are we doing incredibly well. In a past life, when I was working on a telemedicine app, we realized through the numbers, as we were looking at the cohorts of people coming in and the incredible acquisition efforts that we were doing, that they were coming in and not really converting very well. We thought we were doing the job. We thought we were giving them the diagnosis. We thought we were able to serve them well with a doctor's visit, but no one stuck around. And it wasn't until we really talked to users that we realized, my goodness, the average US consumer is here to come in and get their problem fixed with a prescription. And that didn't really reveal itself until we talked to folks. And then that kind of revealed a whole different problem for us to solve for.
All right, I'm talking to product people here, so I half know the answer to this. But and since we're talking about more qualitative feedback right now, what is that balance? How do you guys find that balance between the qualitative feedback side of things and the quantitative feedback side of things as it relates to PLG?
Yeah, I think for us, we see the quantitative feedback to validate something we've launched. So we do A/B testing to validate, okay, if let's say we have 2 onboarding, which one has the best retention, we can definitely use quantitative feedback to have the answer. But the qualitative feedback is mostly used to know what will come next in our products. And my advice would be to not look at why people drop, but why people stay in the app. Because it's very difficult to talk with someone who dropped. If he dropped, maybe he didn't see the product and didn't understand the value. But if you talk with people who stay in the app and try to understand why he stay in the app, maybe the main problem is like the guy who dropped just didn't understand this value. And so you have to insist on this value. So we use quantitative feedback to validate our ideas or like new features, and qualitative to define what will come next in our roadmap.
I think there's Marty Kagan is one of the product top voices, describes growth in general in terms of like 4 different types of risks. And I think I'll list them. The first is viability, which is this going to be viable for the business to support a new feature or a new product? Then there's value risk, which is this going to provide enough value to the user? Then there's feasibility, which is, can we build this in a reasonable amount of time? And then there's usability. What we have built, is it usable? And I think besides feasibility, all of these other risks can be assessed both qualitatively and quantitatively, depending on what the nature of the hypothesis is. So there's no substitute to talking to your users, in my opinion. And then it's sometimes you start with a quantitative hypothesis and go talk to users, or vice versa. Depends on the nature of the problem. If you're really stuck on, oh, I'm seeing this metric move and I really can't come up with a good hypothesis or see clear trends in the data, go talk to your users. Similarly, for a new product idea, you want to assess the value risk. So you want to go talk to your users first to see if that's really a key problem and painful enough to solve before you start to build and start assessing the viability and the feasibility risks around the product or the feature.
I think I broadly agree with Yves and Sukriti here. I would like to dig in on something that Yves, you brought up, where as a general practice at a SaaS platform that I worked at before, we actually paid our churned users or churned accounts for dedicated time to really spend like a deep dive on why they moved away from our platform, why they weren't happy with something. It's expensive for sure, but we had to really get that counter voice into the mix so that we could inform what we were going to do next, and frankly, highlight the risk. Oftentimes with PLG, we highlight potential or opportunity, and we ignore or perhaps don't necessarily regard risk terribly well up front. So something worth incorporating into everybody's practices.
So we're hitting on some of my favorite themes in all this. We were talking about risks and hypotheses, and we just hit on aha moments and a little bit on North Star metrics earlier. Again, talking to product people, these are the kind of things that I should expect to hear too. But the other kind of key piece to all of this, especially as it relates to hypotheses, is when we start to put together our list of hypotheses or tests we want to run as it relates to the product and to really facilitate strong product-led growth, how do we prioritize that?
Well, I can start off by saying that you have to start off with some sort of framing, some sort of common understanding. It doesn't really necessarily matter what the framework is, whether it's RICE, whether it's the Eisenhower matrix, whether it's a coin flip on a few different factors. Really, you just have to try and baseline everything, order them somehow, and then really gut check that with your team, your colleague, your co-founder, a person in Starbucks, whatever it takes for you to really get a more sound gut judgment on what you want to do first, second, and third. At least that's how I tend to do it.
Yeah, I think like nobody has the right answer, because like when we look at like the 5 years of WeWard, we made mistakes, and sometimes we feel like, yeah, maybe these mistakes can be avoided because if we were thinking differently. But at the end, the goal is, I think, to look at which feature you feel that will have the highest impact, and you need to be honest with yourself and to check if it will have an impact on your North Star metrics. And being honest with yourself is just like saying, like, okay, what can I estimate to be the real impact on these metrics? And say it before the launch of this metric, or before even like just the development of these metrics, because sometimes if you do it after, you will always find data that are going in the right way or some data that are going in the wrong way. Mm-hmm. So you just have to, in advance, try to estimate what could be the impact. It will give you a first idea of what you have to prioritize. And then you have to try to find a way to be sure that you will be able to test this hypothesis very easily. And so try to build a kind of MVP of this feature and to test it on a sample of users. And by doing that, for sure you will have an answer very easily. But yeah, we are always making mistake on that. And even today, sometimes we launch some features that is not a success, and we say, oh, we didn't like think enough about it before like working on the development of that, and we lost like 2 weeks of development, but that's normal.
I like to follow more of a portfolio management approach where there's one or two big bets that we may or may not have a lot of conviction on, and then a bunch of smaller, low-risk bets. So we avoid the risk of like something not landing at the end of the quarter, or let's say 2 quarters, but we still are building towards like a 10x better experience for something else that we have built conviction on over time. And it's more of balancing those two in parallel than sequencing it.
So is that sort of like a boulders, rocks, and pebbles approach?
I guess so. And even within the boulders, there's like sub-hypotheses you can start testing. So I don't see it necessarily as like a roadmap as 1, 2, and 3. It's more like, if 0.5 doesn't succeed, then we have these 2 paths that we could pursue, and like having that contingency plan in place beforehand, sort of like a pre-mortem on the big bets, while you know the smaller ones will land.
Yeah. The number of ideas, I think, is probably the most important thing, actually.
Yeah.
Not getting fixated on a particular approach.
Absolutely.
I love that. All right, I want to ask you guys one more question, and then we're probably going to open it up to questions here, the audience. We're obviously in a very different fundraising environment right now. The last couple of years have definitely been tight, to say the least. Companies aren't getting, $10 million seed rounds anymore. They're getting 2 and being pretty happy with it. If we were to prioritize some level of advice for anybody that's trying to explore PLG into their own product, their own app, what would you tell them? How would they get into it?
I think WeWard didn't spend any euros in acquisition for 3.5 years. And we managed to get like millions of downloads, mostly by organic acquisition. And I think my advice, so it's dedicated to this type of product, of course. I'm talking about like consumer app and free app like that. I think like the reason is just like, I don't think Facebook did so much paid acquisition at the beginning. Inside all of that app didn't do that. So I don't think you need so much money at the beginning. You just need to be sure that you work on the right things, which is basically the retention. And for us, since the beginning, we are just looking like either like an active user that will come back the day after. And this was the metric since the beginning, and we are trying to increase this number. And the paid acquisition is just maybe sometimes a way to test, to have some volume, because if you want to do A/B test, you need some volume. So my advice would be, don't think about the paid acquisition at the beginning for a consumer app or like a gaming app, but just think about the retention. And once the retention is enough, then you can put money in the machine, and like it will go well.
I think it's good that money is not as free-flowing anymore. That forces people to really do their homework and build something of value before going and either raising money or pumping their marketing machines. So I think it's actually a welcome change.
I actually very much agree with that. Like seeing how some companies were spending money 4 or 5 years ago and what it looks like today, companies certainly seem to focus a lot more on actually building a profitable company, not just spending, 10x what the actual value of their user is on a single user. Andrew?
Yeah, I think the cheap money did lead to, I'd say, oversaturation in paid tactics. And interestingly enough, when I think about the names behind me, a lot of them are focused on, well, getting to users in a different way, whether it's market intelligence, whether it's app store optimization, whether it's tracking your users in such a way that you understand what's working and what's not. All of these are incredibly important inputs into how you decide what PLG motion you want to execute on, what tactic you want to employ, or tactics that you want to employ for the next week, next month, next quarter. So if anything, I guess I'm of a mixed mind. It's a shame that we don't have that capital available for apps to learn, but I guess it forces us to be pretty scrappy as far as how do we really hone in on learning and understanding our users, our customers, our prospects better.
I love that.
Also, yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Sukriti.
going like one level deeper on that, it also, I think, helps companies and products go from these vanity metrics of these many acquisitions, these many users, to what is the value of the product.
All right, we already have some good questions popping up on the board here, and I'm going to ask one or two of these that have already been submitted, and then if anybody, as we're asking questions, wants to pop a hand up or something, I'll try to make a pause for anything live. First question we've got on here: what's one product change that you made that had a meaningful impact on your North Star?
I can take it. At the beginning at WeWard, so the app was basically a step counter that gives you rewards based on your number of steps. And we were using basically like the Apple Health connection. And every time someone is connecting to the app, we calculate the reward he deserves and give it to him. And we made a change in the app, which was the fact that people have to validate their steps every day to get the rewards. And it was, I think, the most impactful change we made, because we create the habit to people to go back in the app, of course, but the habit of people to check every day how many steps they do. And it has two impacts. The first one was a real impact on the North Star metrics, because it increased a lot the number of daily active users. It created a habit to people, so people were way more sticky. And the impact it has was the impact on our mission, because our mission is to increase the number of steps of people. Like people, like with the feeling that they have to validate their steps at the end of the day, just want to increase the number of steps to be proud of themselves. So this very simple action that create a habit in the app and change the way people interact with the app by making them like force action was really good. So we did this A/B testing because like you can imagine like half of the company was against this decision to force people to go back in the app. This is not what people want. And this is true. Like at the beginning, people say, I don't want to go back in the app every day. But at the end, it was, I think, one of the best decisions. So one thing you can imagine is like, what is, for a daily app like us, what is the daily behavior that you want people to have in your app? And you can try to force this behavior at the beginning to create a habit, and you will see if people come back in the app. So to force this habit, at the beginning, we sent push notification every day. We did like many like engagement strategy. And today, even if we don't send push notification to people, they will come back in the app and validate their steps. Not 100%, but almost. So it's definitely like a habit that people have in the app before going to bed, like to validate their steps.
I'll share a mobile-specific one that was really impactful. This was my first growth role at Yahoo Finance, and at the time, Google I/O had just announced instant apps, which was like a 4 megs version of the entire app, where you could just go in quickly, see what a native app experience looks like, and then you're much more likely to convert to downloading the app. And I remember spending like 2 weeks with the entire team on sort of a hack project to make this happen. So we had to first identify what is the core experience that we want to do within 4 megs, which is very limited. And then second is how do we then tie this in with SEO essentially? Because how the entire flow works is you search for, let's say, Airbnb stock. Where you end up is not on the web page of Yahoo Finance, but on this instant app experience that gives you this pop of, oh, this is a really cool app, I want to download it, and then I can get push notifications and whatnot, and what that core experience would look like. And that was hugely impactful, so much so that all the other 12 or so apps within the Yahoo portfolio ended up adopting it as well. This is also sort of an arbitrage opportunity, and something very relevant to PLG is paying attention to announcements at Google I/O or WWDC about newer capabilities that other companies might not be paying attention to just yet, and they become very effective marketing channels for you then.
I think one example from my history, more on the web side, is with a previous media company that I worked with. I remember the date, actually, December 28th, 2016. We were leading up to the close of the year, and we were just trying to find a way to scramble to cover declining ad impressions and ad inventory. And we were deciding between Facebook Instant Articles at the time, which probably many of you may not remember or even know about, and Google AMP. And we made a bet in early December where we said, let's build the prototype. Let's get AMP done before the end of the month. And we did. And then in January, we got a huge lift in our metrics. And we didn't quite believe it ourselves when we saw it. But over the months, it just stayed and stayed and stayed. And so it just kind of speaks to the power of being incredibly curious and frankly daring when you see opportunities out there as far as changing your product or adjusting to a new medium to make that change. And in our case, it dramatically helped our North Star metrics as far as CPMs.
We've got a lot of really good questions coming in. Yves, you're pretty popular right now. We've got questions about WeWard flying in right now. I'm going to go to the one after that. Let's say, how do you balance ease of onboarding, short and sweet, versus collecting as much data as possible, more tedious, as it relates to that wow moment, first impression?
Actually, we don't ask so much question to people during the onboarding. We're just trying to create this wow effect, and the data we collect is mostly every interaction in the app, but mostly if we are looking for the number of daily active users, we collect the retention. And so we don't care about the time spent in the app because this is not the goal of the app. We just care about if people are active. Also, by an active user is someone that validates their steps. And so we don't ask so much question, and because we believe that making people walk is like important for everybody. So, of course, we have like a category of people, a segment that is more likely to have a better retention. But at the end, at the beginning, this is not what we are looking for. We were just like looking for the data of engagement, and we were trying to push different versions and to see if the engagement is better. But what we realized is like the fact that we show to people the number of steps they take since the beginning of their phone was quite impressive for them, because people didn't realize that we can have access to this type of data. So we were showing this data, and we were just celebrating the number of steps, and it was working well. So we didn't collect so much data.
If I could jump in here, I think this one word matters most in my experience: context, specifically user context. So with this telemedicine app that I worked with, our onboarding before you got to the moment of a wow moment, which in that case was the initial diagnosis of a condition, we were averaging somewhere between 25 to 40 some odd questions. That's a lot. In contrast, with a previous product I worked on with regards to wedding dress shopping, 6. Radically different. Radically different user contexts, radically different onboarding flows. And so it's more about understanding what the user is there for and asking relevant questions. If you can justify the questions with an eye test or, well, yeah, from a metrics perspective, include it. You don't have to shortchange it if you need that information. If you don't need that information, then definitely ask yourself, why are you putting it in there? Why is this extra friction necessary? Is it for you, or is it for the user? So user context.
Yeah, if you're trying to justify to the user, like, we take this data because of this, and just you are trying, like, it's a bad decision. Like, the user, like, think about as a user and, like, just put in front of the user what they want to see. If they are here for a reason, like, let's say I'm asking to people, what is your weight? Like, they say, I don't care. Like, I can say, yeah, because, like, based on your weight, we will say you how many steps you need to do to lose weight. Like, we don't care. Like, people just want to see the number of steps. They are here for that reason and get rewarded. That's it. And so we go straight to the points. And sometimes we can ask questions about, why do you want to walk more? We will help you to walk more. Is it something you want to do with us? That's a good question. But, like, trying to get data or get information about the user, I think it's not the right way to do it.
So we've got a question here about marketplace growth, and it just so happens that marketplace growth is one of my favorite problems to solve for. It also happens that we have a product manager from a very well-known marketplace. So, Sukriti, how can you do PLG for a marketplace-based app that requires a certain user density to be successful, like a ride-sharing app or a dating app?
I think this is like the cold start problem, right? Do you start from supply or do you start from demand? And there's very good arguments on both sides. I would direct you to Andrew Chen's article on this, which says supply is king. There's also other sides of the argument, and also the cold start problem book. Short answer, I don't know what the PLG angle on this is, but focus on one side and really build a competitive advantage there, and the other side will follow, is the general principle. So Tinder famously got a bunch of very attractive people on the platform first, and that attracted a lot more other people that wanted to date them. So I think the same principle can apply to any other kind of marketplace. On Spotify, one of the things that we did for launching a 0-to-1 marketplace was exclusive merch that was only available on Spotify from top artists, and that was very successful. So it's either the density, or it could be the quality of the merchandise, or in the dating app case, the people that you're onboarding.
We've got another WeWard question here. Actually, I'm going to say, well, we've got 2 minutes left. Yves, if you think you can get to that one in a minute, 30 seconds, then
Yeah.
do the elevator pitch.
It's about the organic growth.
Yeah, to read it. Can WeWard talk more about the organic acquisition growth? Was there really no money put into paid marketing? And how do you grow so much organically?
So the problem with organic is like we don't know where it's coming from. So that's the definition of organic. But I can share some elements. So first of all, what we call the product market fit is like when you don't even know how you will manage this growth. And this is what happened to WeWard at the beginning. So we were waking up one morning and say, what the fuck, we have like 100,000 downloads. We don't know where it's coming from. We don't know why. And we are trying to look on, I'm going to look on TikTok. Maybe there is an influencer that talk about the app. I'm going to look on media, on press. And this is what happened to WeWard. But I think why it happened, and then you understand. When you have a TikTok with a millions view, it's just because the guy that did the TikTok is an addict user of your app. So at the end, it's just because the product is corresponding to something with the wow effect and with the retention. And the first TikTok that happened was just a random girl that did a random TikTok and get 1 million views. And this girl actually like became an intern of the company. So she was like 18 years old and like teach her how to do TikTok. So we tried to leverage what she did, but we never managed to do the same. And actually, every time we had a TikTok with 1,000 or millions of views, it was just people we didn't know and we didn't pay or we didn't manage. And for the press, it was the same. Sometimes you have a journalist that talking about the app in the top media, and this journalist, you never had contact with him, you don't know him at all, he didn't ask you anything, but just talk about the app and generates thousands of views. So I think, unfortunately, I don't have any advice. And organic growth and like product market fit is just like when you have so much people that coming to the app and you don't know why.
That's great. All right, guys, that's all the time we have. I would like to thank everyone here on stage, Andrew, Yves, Sukriti. Thanks, everybody, for sitting down with us and having a good talk.
Thank you.